Shy girl's incredible ER visit reveals a millionaire doctor. A transformative love story unfolds. Emily stood by the soup kitchen's entrance, heart racing as the chaos unfolded inside. The usual hum of activity felt amplified today, voices echoed, plates clattered, and a sudden frenzy for food brought forth crowds she had never seen. As she leaned to pick up a dropped bag of flour, her feet caught on something warm and furry. With a yelp, she stumbled but landed knees first. A searing pain shot through her leg. The dog, now dashing away, left a scattering of shocked faces in its wake. Sitting in the ER, her mind spiraled as she awaited treatment. The stark fluorescent lights above seemed to spotlight her insecurities, making her feel smaller than ever. This wasn't how she imagined her day would go. She had hoped to make a difference, not end up with a bruised ego and a sprained ankle. She looked around at the room full of people and suddenly felt abysmally out of place. Nurses moved with efficiency, but Emily could barely manage a quiet thank you when they spoke to her. Just then, the imposing figure of Dr. Alex Carter entered her vision. His piercing blue eyes locked onto hers, and with a practiced smile, he approached. The confidence he exuded was overwhelming. Emily felt both intimidated and drawn to him. She was acutely aware of her scruffy nursing scrubs, nothing like the tailored white coat he wore. As he examined her knee, a part of her envied the gap between them, while another part yearned to bridge it. What did a millionaire surgeon care for a shy, self-doubting nursing student like her? As he began to stitch up her wound, they exchanged words. Their conversation ignited a shared vision. They both desired to help their community, both were passionate about their fields despite the challenges around them. But as his gaze lingered on her, she suddenly questioned her ambition. Did she truly belong among such high-caliber individuals? "You have potential, you know," he said, breaking her introspection. Those words both encouraged and terrified her. Emily felt the stirrings of self-doubt creeping back in, drowning the confidence Alex inspired. Would she ever measure up? They had begun studying together, late-night sessions filled with laughter and medical texts, each moment granting her a glimpse of her own capabilities. But with those heartening nights came a growing fear. She wondered whether she'd fade away next to his brilliance. Before she could spiral further into her insecurities, another wave crashed in from Alex's world. A faceless benefactor from his past entered their lives, threatening everything he had built. Her heart dropped. If Alex, with all his charm and confidence, could be rattled, what did that mean for her budding aspirations? Each time she saw him falter, her stomach twisted. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emily's mind churned. Confronting the benefactor was not just about defending Alex, it was about affirming her own worth. Would she speak up for him? Could she stand by someone she admired so deeply? She could almost taste the pressure in the air, a charged moment swelling with tension. Each heartbeat seemed louder, echoing her fears. Staring into Alex's eyes, she felt the weight of their connection. Everything they built was at stake. Could she rise to the occasion or would she remain confined in the shadows of her doubts? The decision loomed heavily on her. Would their bond withstand this torrent, or would their dreams dissolve before the stark reality that lay ahead? The days that followed felt like a blur to Emily. Each encounter with Alex in the library that formed their makeshift study space ignited the fire within her, but the shadow of uncertainty loomed ever larger. Alex was effortlessly brilliant, his mind seeming to dance across medical theories and practical applications, while Emily strained to keep up. A nagging voice in her head insisted that she was merely an imposter in this world, a nursing student whose limitations would soon be exposed. Yet, every time they met, the intensity of Alex's gaze reminded her that he believed in her potential. She noticed the way he paused, allowing her to answer, encouraging her efforts even during moments when she stuttered through a complex topic. It was during one of these sessions, surrounded by textbooks and the muted hum of the campus library, that something began to shift within her. "Emily," he said one evening, leaning back in his chair, a gentle smirk playing at the corners of his mouth, "you've improved so much. I think you're ready for the next level." Next level? Her heart raced. Every iota of self-doubt began to re-emerge. What do you mean? I mean, you should consider taking on more responsibilities. Perhaps you'd like to shadow me at the hospital next week? The question hung in the air thick with expectation. Facing Alex now wasn't a matter of skill alone, but of confronting the fear that tightly wound around her heart. Could she really step into that world, one where all eyes would be on her, evaluating her every step? The prospect thrilled her and petrified her all at once. I'll think about it. She could sense the shift in the energy between them. Anticipation flickered, leaving a mark on the air, teasing her own aspirations. What if she disrupted the pattern of her life? What if her voice, her presence, carried weight beyond her own expectations? As she walked back to her apartment that evening, the usual sense of impending dread was replaced with an unrecognizable rush of excitement. The faintest whisper of possibility echoed through her mind as she meticulously weighed her options. Perhaps acting against the tide of her insecurities offered the breakthrough she longed for. That night, she laid awake, questioning her abilities and searching through her past experiences for signs of competence. Each fleeting moment of self-doubt battled against the memories of encouragement Alex had offered, which themselves grew more pronounced. She recalled a time during a clinical simulation when she had been the only one to identify a critical change in a patient's condition. The praise from her instructor rang in her ears. It was tangible proof of her talent, yet she often brushed it aside, buried deep beneath layers of self-beat-up. The weight of Alex's recent proposition flashed bright in her mind, pulling her back to the present moment. She wasn't just a student, she was on the brink of proving herself not only to others but to herself as well. Stepping into the operating room with him could be her challenge. It could be the confirmation she craved, the catalyst for her transformation. But just as she formed her resolve, her phone buzzed with a message from Alex. The benefactor's back. He's making threats to the hospital now, trying to pressure administration. We might need to confront him together. The excitement she had built crumbled faster than a house of cards upon hearing those words. Facing that world was suddenly more than just a professional leap, it became a reckless plunge into an unpredictable storm. Could she handle not only her fears but also the repercussions of engaging with someone who wielded power over Alex's future? Caught in the crosshairs of indecision, Emily felt the ripples of fear and determination collide drastically. Would she seize the moment and push back against the benefactor's manipulative grip? Or would she retreat, allowing her insecurities to dictate her fate? The answer loomed larger than ever. She had to confront the challenge ahead, but was she truly ready for this defining moment? The morning light filtered through the curtains, illuminating the chaos of Emily's thoughts. The message from Alex lingered in her mind like a stubborn stain. She shuffled through her routine, but every action, shower, breakfast, slipping on her scrubs felt monumental. Each moment reminded her of the decision hanging over her, to confront the benefactor alongside Alex or retreat to her comfort zone. At the hospital, the bustling energy enveloped her, drowning out her wavering confidence. She navigated the familiar hallways with urgency, an uninvited weight pulling her down. When she reached the surgical wing, she found Alex waiting, his expression a blend of intensity and encouragement. "Emily, I'm glad you're here." His voice cut through her fog. "Are you ready?" "Ready?" she echoed, her heart pounding in her chest. Was she ready to jump into the depths of intrigue, with the fate of not just herself, but also Alex hanging in the balance? "We'll start by briefing the staff," he said, moving confidently through the crowd. "The benefactor's influence has reached far. We need to be strategic if we want to address this head-on." As he spoke, Emily listened closely, her mind racing. This was more than academics, it called for real-world problem-solving, a demonstration of her capabilities beyond the theory she had studied. Nevertheless, the thoughts swirling within her were relentless. How could she contribute? Could she really be part of something larger than her own insecurities? In an instant, she felt a surge of resolve. She might not be brilliant like Alex, but she had something he didn't, a unique perception born from her struggle with self-doubt. It granted her a different perspective on patient care and interpersonal dynamics, an understanding of what it meant to feel small in the vastness of healthcare. As they entered the staff room, tension was palpable. Nurses gathered, their expressions painted with concern. Emily steadied her breath, reminded herself of that critical moment in the simulation. She had identified the patient's need while others had overlooked it, and an idea ignited in her mind. Can we leverage our patients' voices? She ventured, hesitating only for a moment. If we highlight patient experiences, it could show the benefactor the real impact of his interference. If he sees the human side of this, perhaps he could be persuaded to back off. Alex raised an eyebrow, impressed. That's an excellent angle. We should include testimonials in our report. Encouraged by Alex's response, Emily continued brainstorming ideas, a fire igniting inside her. The more she spoke, the more she began to recognize her potential to drive change, a feeling she'd rarely experienced before. The doubts that had once felt like iron shackles started to loosen their grip, but as the words began flowing, excitement transmuted into fear as she considered their confrontation with the benefactor. What if he dismissed their efforts? What if he turned against them for speaking out? The scenarios lurked like shadows, waiting for a chance to overshadow her newfound confidence. We have to be ready for anything, Alex stated, his voice resolute. We'll draft our plan today, and when the time comes, we stand firm. Stand firm. The words resonated deep within her, and for the first time, she grasped what that truly meant. It wasn't just about fighting external battles but also conquering the inner voice that dismissed her strength. That realization was both liberating and terrifying, something in inner alignment, a shift in her identity felt palpably different. As they committed to the plan, Emily was not only articulating her thoughts, she was defining her presence in this world, asserting herself not just as a student but as a significant player in a narrative much larger than her fears. As they concluded their huddle with newfound resolve, the door swung open, revealing the benefactor himself. A man with an imposing presence, his sharp gaze swept across the room, filling Emily with immediate dread. All the hard work, the self-discovery, they would be tested. Now it was time to face the music, and she felt both terrified and exhilarated. Could she rise to the challenge and stand by Alex as they confronted the consequences of their boldness? Or would the pressure send her tumbling back into uncertainty? With the benefactor's unexpected arrival, Emily's next move would be crucial. Would she find the voice that mattered? The moment of truth had arrived, setting the stage for a confrontation that could redefine her path in unimaginable ways. The benefactor stepped into the room like a stark shadow cast over Emily's burgeoning confidence. His presence commanded attention, momentarily silencing the murmurs that had filled the space seconds before. The tension thickened, making the air feel almost suffocating as he scanned the room, his gaze landing on Emily and Alex. Good afternoon, everyone. I trust there's a matter you wanted to discuss? His voice was measured, cold, the confidence laced into his syllables sending a shiver down Emily's spine. She felt the familiar clenching of doubt in her stomach, a visceral reminder of her past hesitations. This was the moment to either step into her power or retreat into anonymity. The stakes had escalated, and with them, her determination flickered precariously, like a candle in a sudden gust. We've gathered some feedback from the staff and patients, Alex began, his tone steady, but Emily could feel the crackling urgency beneath. We believe that involving patient experiences will illustrate the broader implications of your involvement in hospital operations. Emily stood by him, her heart racing. This was her cue, and she couldn't let it slip away. We want to present a perspective that is focused on care and compassion, rather than statistics and policies. The words came out in a rush, a signal flare for her inner resolve. She locked eyes with Alex, silently urging him to support her. The benefactor's brow furrowed slightly, the slightest hesitance cracking his facade. Patient experiences can be subjective. What are you proposing, exactly? A pact formed in that instant between her and Alex. We'd like to collect testimonials and compile a report that highlights how your decisions influence our caregivers and the patient's journey, she said, feeling bolder with each syllable. If we can convey the emotional and psychological impact you have, we believe it may resonate with your views and values. Something shifted in the room, a thick tension seemingly gathering around the benefactor's eyes. He appeared contemplative, which could either lead to fruitful dialogue or a tightening grip on his control. Interesting, he replied slowly, absorbing her words like a predator weighing its next move. But do you really think emotions can spark any change in my decisions? This is a business, not a charity. His response felt like a slap, igniting her defensiveness. Change often begins with understanding, she stated, the fire within fighting against the doubts clawing at her mind. Her heartbeat resonated in her ears, urging her forward. If we can help you understand the human impact of your choices, perhaps you'll see a need to reconsider some policies. The benefactor narrowed his eyes, clearly annoyed. And what makes you an authority on the matter, Miss Emily? The introduction slipped out smoothly, her voice firmer than it had been moments before. I've spent countless hours observing how decisions filter down to the front line and affect actual patients. I can provide insight that data alone cannot. I believe my understanding of both care and concern, something you've seemingly overlooked, could be beneficial. The shift was subtle yet palpable, a ripple passing through the assembled staff as they processed her words. She could sense them leaning toward Alex, gauging his reaction, and the moment felt dangerously precarious, balancing on the precipice of success and vulnerability. I'll consider your proposal, but don't expect a warm reception, he said curtly, waving the matter away like a bothersome fly. As he prepared to leave, Emily felt a surge of determination, the kind that propelled her to act. But what you don't know, sir, is how critical this is, not just for us, but for you too. Change is a two-way street. If you want true influence, understanding is key. The benefactor paused at the door, a flicker of interest momentarily breaking his steely demeanor. I'll entertain your insights, Emily. For now. A whirlwind of emotions washed over her as he exited, layered with exhilaration and apprehension. Had she truly made an impression? The moment was pivotal, yet she felt the mental strain of what lay ahead. What just happened? Alex asked, shock evident in his tone. I don't know, she admitted, struggling to catch her breath. Whatever it was, you stood your ground, he said appreciatively. You started to realize your potential. His praise nourished her burgeoning confidence, yet the uncertainty loomed large. The next confrontation appeared imminent, a dual journey across uncharted territory with Alex. Would they delve deeper into this new strategy, or would the benefactor's next move unravel everything she had just achieved? The tension was a living thing, coiling around her. What lay ahead would ultimately test her resolve beyond the limits she had known. Determination sparked within her as she considered the path ahead, both thrilling and fraught with risk. It was time to strategize their next step, preparing for the inevitable clash of ideals on a battlefield created by circumstance and ambition. But would she rise to meet it or falter under the strain? As they walked out together, the hallway stretched before them, the future uncertain. The real battle was only beginning. Emily walked alongside Alex, the hallway humming with the aftermath of their confrontation. The air crackled, thick with unexpressed thoughts swirling in her mind. Had she truly stepped beyond herself? Each stride felt heavier, as if the weight of expectation had settled on her shoulders. I can't believe how you held your own in there, Alex commented, breaking the silence. You've got a real knack for communicating your insights. His encouragement warmed her chest, yet she grappled with an undercurrent of anxiety. How long could she sustain this newfound bravado? The room's atmosphere had shifted, but it seemed more a prelude than a conclusion. Thanks, Alex. But do you think our proposal will actually go anywhere? She wondered, anxiety knitting into her brow. He slowed his pace, turning to face her. We've planted a seed. It's not about just this meeting. It's about making sure it grows. We need to build on that momentum. Right. Momentum. The word echoed in her thoughts, thrusting her deeper into contemplation. What did that mean for her? It had taken years of hesitance to find her voice, and now she felt it dangling precariously just beyond her reach, ripe for plucking but still frighteningly fragile. They arrived in the small conference room where their strategy meetings were usually held. The whiteboard was cluttered with notes, idle thoughts that now felt like relics of her former self. Emily scanned the chaotic array, searching for clarity amidst the chaos. What if we create a structured plan to collect testimonials? She suggested, her voice tinged with newfound certainty. We could conduct interviews, really connect with patients and staff. Alex nodded, a spark igniting in his eyes. Yes. And we can frame the insights in a way that emphasizes not just the struggles but also the triumphs. Highlighting the emotional aspects can provide a narrative that shifts perceptions. Excitement coursed through her veins, each idea was a stepping stone forward. We should also consider the format something visual that can draw someone in. As they crafted their storyboard on the whiteboard, Emily felt the shift within herself. Each plan solidified her presence in this space. She wasn't just a spectator in a world dominated by strong personalities. She was part of the change, an architect of their mission. But beneath her resolve lingered shadows of self-doubt. What if they failed to resonate with the benefactor? What if he brushed aside their hard work, just as he had done their first attempt? Let us refine our pitch, she proposed, her voice steady even as her mind raced. We need to address possible counterarguments he might have. Exactly, Alex replied, excitement transforming into seriousness. We need to be prepared for resistance. He might dismiss the emotional angle entirely. With each passing moment, the initial thrill morphed into something deeper, resolve interwoven with the fear of inadequacy. She thought back to the confrontation, the eyes of her colleagues witnessing her earnestness. A new resolve crystallized as she realized this was not just her journey, but part of a collective fight for a purpose she had grown to cherish. They worked late into the evening, refining their proposal, their minds and hearts sinking in this mission. With every testimonial they discussed, a piece of Emily's old self slipped away, leaving behind a clearer picture of who she aspired to be. When they finally stepped outside, the stars blinked overhead, unbothered and distant, unaware of the tidal shifts occurring on Earth below. Emily felt a pang of yearning and urge to comprehend the gravity of their mission against the vast cosmos. It was a stark reminder of how insignificant one voice could seem, yet at the same time, how powerful it could become. Are you ready for the meeting tomorrow? Alex asked, misreading the conflict playing out in her mind. Taking a breath, she nodded, the hesitation fading. I will be. We have the chance to turn this around. But as she glanced back at the entrance they had just exited, an echo of the benefactor's icy demeanor tugged at her resolve. Tomorrow would be another test, another obstacle to breach. What if they had prepared, only to find themselves undermined once again? The new day loomed ahead, teetering on the edge of possibility. With every beat of her heart, the stakes grew higher. What if this was only the beginning of a series of confrontations that would challenge not just her position but her very essence? Emily squared her shoulders, the anticipation stirring inside her like the first blush of dawn, unsure of what kind of light it would bring but ready to embrace it nonetheless. Tomorrow was not just a meeting, it was a potential turning point, and deep down, she felt it, the unmistakable whisper that the real challenge lay ahead. The air felt thick as Emily prepared for the meeting, each tick of the clock amplifying her anxiety. She stood in front of the mirror, smoothing her blazer, the fabric a slight armor against her self-doubt. Why did it feel like her heart beat louder than her thoughts? She was not just a participant anymore, she was a crucial player in a game she had once merely observed from the sidelines. As she entered the conference room, the tension was palpable. The benefactor, an imposing figure with a reputation for being unforgiving, sat at the head of the table, flipping through the proposal she and Alex had crafted. Her eyes met Alex's, a silent exchange of reassurance that barely masked their apprehension. Let us get started, he said, projecting a confidence that she hoped would infuse her as well. Emily opened her mouth to speak, then hesitated. What if her voice wavered? What if her carefully rehearsed lines crumbled into a jumble of incoherence? Today, we want to show you the impact our initiative can have on patient care and community engagement, Alex began, grounding himself in their common purpose. He presented the opening arguments, outlining the narrative focused on emotional connections. Emily listened, allowing herself to absorb his confident delivery while mentally preparing her portion. And when her moment arrived, she took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the collective struggle she had witnessed. Mr. Thompson, she began, using the benefactor's last name intentionally, we believe that by sharing real stories from those we serve, we can foster a deeper understanding of our work. As words fell from her lips, momentum built with each sentence, each conviction sharpening her resolve. She hadn't just dug into a plan, she was radiating passion. Was this what Alex had meant by planting seeds? She prayed fervently that these seeds would not dry up before they had the chance to bloom, but the benefactor remained impassive, listening intently, his expression inscrutable. Emily's mind raced through potential rebuttals, scenarios of dismissal swirling like angry bees. What if he found their emotional angle too sentimental? What if he deemed their proposal superficial? While we appreciate the personal stories, he interrupted, his voice cold, I need to see figures, outcomes, and tangible benefits. What is the ROI of an emotional pitch? The question hit her like a slap. A chill raced through her, that familiar cloak of self-doubt threatened to engulf her again. But Emily willed herself to confront that sense of inadequacy. Mr. Thompson, she replied, steadying her breath to eliminate the tremor, the true return on investment lies in creating a community that feels valued and understood. Testimonials are not just statistics, they are powerful narratives that inspire change. Research shows that organizations that prioritize empathy tend to achieve better long-term outcomes. As she spoke, she noticed Alex's encouraging nods, they ignited a flicker of hope within her. For years, she had hidden behind data and strings of logic, catering to an environment where emotional intelligence seemed undervalued. But this was hers to claim, to her voice, her perspective. The benefactor narrowed his eyes, seemingly evaluating her sincerity. Then prove it. Emboldened, Emily leaned in, tapping into her growing conviction. We can organize focus groups, develop metrics based on patient satisfaction, and analyze behavioral changes post-interaction. Real change cannot happen without first acknowledging and understanding the underlying emotions that drive human behavior. With every word she strung together, self-doubt began to dissolve. She was deep within the throes of conversation, no longer a mere observer but a strategist immersed in an unfamiliar terrain. As the meeting progressed, Emily fought against the urge to both dread and crave the benefactor's judgment. They presented their data, the personal stories mingled with statistical promise, creating a tapestry of compelling evidence. Toward the end of the presentation, the benefactor leaned back in his chair, his expression sharpening. Let us say I'm interested. What happens next? Her heart stuttered, the uncertainty of their proposal lingered in the air, yet she could almost taste the tantalizing prospect of victory. Could this be the validation she sought? But then she caught the glimmer of self-doubt surfacing once more. What if their entire premise would unravel under proper scrutiny? Mr. Thompson, Alex interjected before she could falter. We propose a pilot program to assess the effectiveness of our approach. If we don't deliver results, you can reconsider. Emily's eyes ranged back to the benefactor, watching for signs of agreement, each second stretching into eternity. The opportunity hung in the balance, but in that moment, something shifted within her. She realized that regardless of the outcome, she had ventured beyond the confines of her fears. Whether we succeed or fail, Emily asserted, this journey begins with us. We are committed to growth, learning, and evolution both as individuals and as a team. The benefactor regarded her with a new intensity, and for the first time, the possibility of acceptance flickered. But as the meeting adjourned and the reality of their proposal suspended in limbo, another thought whispered insistently, what if this was merely the opening move of a much larger chess game? Tomorrow could bring unexpected challenges that would test her courage and resolve in ways she had yet to imagine. She turned to Alex, a spark of determination igniting once again, ready to embrace whatever would come next. The morning sun pushed through the blinds, creating striped patterns on the floor that contrasted sharply with the shadows of her swirling thoughts. Emily sat at her kitchen table, a cup of coffee untouched before her. The meeting from the day before replayed in her mind like an old film, each detail scrutinized, each choice dissected. Had she truly conveyed the strength of their proposal? Had she been convincing enough? Self-doubt nibbled at her confidence, but a deeper, more unfamiliar sensation clawed to the surface, a burgeoning sense of agency. She realized today would be pivotal, not just for their proposal but for her growth. She needed to take charge of her journey, face her fears head-on instead of shrinking back into uncertainty. The previous day's discussion had ignited a fire within her. It was time to build on that momentum, to fortify her own ideas into a coherent strategy that could stand robust scrutiny. Emily pulled out her notebook, the pages filled with sketches of concepts and ideas. A rush of determination flowed through her as she flipped through the pages, recalling every spark of inspiration she had previously dismissed. She delineated her thoughts, weaving together emotional intelligence with empirical data, ensuring every argument was grounded in solid evidence. What if she created a presentation that combined the best of both worlds? A structure that emphasized the emotional impact but was backed by hard facts could show Mr. Thompson that they could align shared values with measurable outcomes. This hinged on more than just the meeting. It was about proving to herself that she could transform vulnerability into strength. Her cell phone suddenly buzzed, snapping her back to the present. It was a message from Alex. How did it go? Ready for the next round? A pulse of excitement surged through her. It was clear that Alex was committed to their joint venture, but the realization struck her that this was no longer solely about them. This was her own path, her narrative. Quickly typing back, she ignited her resolve. I have ideas. Let us meet and brainstorm. We need a plan that really sells our emotional angle with solid data to back it up. As she bounced thoughts around in her mind, she envisaged their presentation, connecting the numbers to the lives behind them. Each statistic could be paired with stories that humanized the data, bridging her former apprehension with newfound confidence. Later that afternoon, they met at a local cafe, the aroma of roasted coffee wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. Emily laid out her revised approach, speaking with rhythm and assurance. We can highlight the patient testimonials, then follow them up with the data showing how such engagement boosts satisfaction scores. We create a narrative that hooks Mr. Thompson, making it clear that emotional intelligence isn't just fluff, it drives results. As she discussed her strategy, Alex's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. That's brilliant, Emily. You're absolutely onto something. His affirmation fanned the flames of her confidence, transforming any residual doubt into determination. The conversation flowed effortlessly, each idea building on the last, until the vibrant tapestry of their proposal emerged, a project imbued with empathy yet anchored in data. When they wrapped up, Emily felt a sense of pride swelling within. She had taken a step toward defining not just her role within the organization but also her identity as an advocate for combining emotional and statistical narratives. However, the contemplation of what lay ahead crept back in. Could they truly convince Mr. Thompson to see the value of a more human-centric approach? That evening, as Emily put together the final slides, a shadow loomed over her excitement. What if her newly forged confidence proved unfounded? What if the benefactor remained unconvinced? She had paved a path, but the peril of its potential failure loomed, like a distant thunderstorm on a horizon she could not ignore. With a sigh, she pushed through, reminding herself that every endeavor would harbor risks, but they also offered unparalleled growth and self-discovery. It was time to face this challenge, not with the timid steps of the past but with the bold stride of the woman she was becoming. In that moment of reflection, she clutched her notebook tightly to her chest, as if it contained all her apprehensions and ambitions. One thought swirled foremost: the time had come to face the truth of whether or not this approach would resonate with Mr. Thompson. The stakes were high, and failure was a possibility she could no longer ignore. Tomorrow, as they prepared for the presentation, would be the ultimate test of her resolve and their collective vision. Would this newfound confidence propel her forward, or would she falter under the pressure? The next day was closing in, and the real challenges were just beginning. Emily woke early the next morning, the weight of anticipation pinching at her gut. Today was not just another day, it was a monumental step in her journey. The sun peeked through the curtains, transforming her living space into a warm sanctuary, but she sat still, consuming the stillness while sipping a cup of coffee that had grown cold in her hands. This was no time to dwell on fears. She knew that every mental distraction would do her confidence no favors. She stood and walked to her bedroom mirror, forcing herself to meet her own gaze. "You can do this," she whispered, almost as if rehearsing an incantation. A part of her was brimming with excitement, the other teetering on the edge of fear. For too long, she had allowed doubt to speak louder than her ambitions, but this time she would speak back. Dressing carefully, she chose a tailored blazer she had bought on a whim. Its sharp exterior mirrored the resolve she needed to embody today. The fabric offered a sense of protection, wrapping around her self-image, reviving her spirits. She fortified herself with affirmations, echoing the supportive feedback Alex had given her the day before. "You have ideas to share. They matter." After gathering her presentation materials and rehearsing her points mentally, Emily left for the office with a determined stride. Each step felt empowering. She was shedding the remnants of uncertainty as she approached the elevator. The sinking feeling in her stomach churned only slightly now, replaced by a sense of purpose. As the elevator doors slid open on her floor, she was greeted by the buzzing energy of her colleagues. Their casual chatter mingled with the smell of fresh coffee. Emily paused briefly, absorbing the atmosphere. This was not just an office but a breeding ground for ideas, camaraderie, and the occasional competitiveness. In each cubicle, there were stories and aspirations, and today she would share her own. Emily quickly found Alex at their designated conference room. He was already setting up the projector, his demeanor calm and focused. "Hey, ready to go?" he asked, looking up with all the reassurance she needed. This was her moment. Together, they reviewed their slides, her confidence reinforced by Alex's patient nods and affirmations, reminding her that vulnerability could be a source of strength. As the meeting time approached, the tension in the air thickened. Emily took a deep breath, mentally aligning her emotional convictions with the data points that underpinned her arguments. This was the intersection where she felt most powerful. She could leverage the narratives behind the statistics, a blend of her mind and heart. When Mr. Thompson entered the room, all eyes locked in a collective gaze of expectation. The thin walls amplified the beating of her heart, but Emily was ready to channel that energy. She initiated the presentation with poised confidence, her voice steady but infused with a passionate clarity. Each slide transitioned seamlessly, the emotional anecdotes threading through the solid facts, and she could see Mr. Thompson lean in, his interest peaking, yet doubt lurked like a shadow just outside her field of vision. What if he dismissed her ideas outright? What if the bold direction they'd chosen was perceived as naive? As she navigated her pitch, her inner dialogue intensified. The stakes felt higher than she'd anticipated, the scrutiny sharper, but she reminded herself that she had prepared rigorously to defend her ideas. As Emily prepared for the critical moment, the question and answer session, her thoughts rallied around a singular truth. She was not here merely to ask for approval, she was here to advocate for a shift in perspective, for the importance of human connection within their metrics. The hesitations, once like anchors, transformed into wings, propelling her forward with each passing moment. Then came the pivotal moment. Mr. Thompson shifted in his chair, a challenging gleam in his eyes. "Emily, while I appreciate the emotional approach, how do you respond to those who believe this is a distraction from our primary objectives?" The unyielding tension coiled in the air. This was her moment to confront both his challenge and her own apprehensions. Would she embrace the pressure and dive deeper into her narrative, or would she falter? A flicker of uncertainty crossed her mind, but she recognized this as an opportunity for growth. She took a breath, poised to answer, realizing that in this moment, she was not just selling an idea, she was battling the ghosts of her insecurities head-on. The time had come to seize this moment, expose the depth of her convictions, and redefine not only her role but the potential impact of their vision. Emily inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of Mr. Thompson's questions settle in her chest. As she steadied herself, her mind raced. It wasn't enough to simply respond, she needed to pivot his challenge into a powerful validation of her concepts. This was where the boundaries melted away. She had to convey that her approach was not just a distraction, but a necessary evolution of their corporate philosophy. "Mr. Thompson," she began, determined to project conviction through her tone, "I understand the concern. However, consider this: emotional engagement has proven to drive both employee satisfaction and client loyalty. If we overlook the human element, we risk alienating ourselves from the very people we need to succeed." The room hesitated, absorbing her words. As her voice steadied, she could see a shift in expressions around the table. Was that a flicker of understanding in Alex's eyes? She built on her thought, referencing studies that showcased organizations where emotional intelligence fostered greater productivity and innovation. The statistics were stark against their traditional metrics, but Emily was no longer simply weaving numbers, she was unearthing a narrative, one that aligned ambition with compassion. Her heart raced, the pulse in her temples echoing her rising tide of confidence. Paradoxically, she unleashed the very vulnerability she had once feared, becoming the spokesperson not just for her ideas but for everyone in that room who might share her sentiments. Defensiveness tempered excitement. Articulating her values felt surreal yet energizing. She could feel waves of empathy radiating through her words. Still, a part of her wondered if she was doing enough. The heat of scrutiny invigorated her, yet the prospect of inadequacy loomed large. This moment was a crucible, testing not only her professional capabilities but her very sense of purpose. Would those in the room accept this new perspective or cling to the predictable comfort of old beliefs? Emily, another voice broke through someone from the back of the room who had remained silent until now. What you're suggesting adds layers of complexity to our already streamlined processes. Isn't it risky? The spoken words felt like a physical blow. She paused, an internal battle igniting as she grappled with the notion that what she was advocating for could disrupt their accustomed mode of operation. Risk is inherent to any meaningful change, she responded, almost instinctively. But consider how inertia can be just as detrimental. Innovators have always faced scrutiny, they transformed skepticism into opportunity. The heat of the moment pressed against her, transforming her resolve into something sturdier. With each objection she addressed, she was asserting her identity not just as a team player but as a leader, a creator of narratives that stirred the collective conscience rather than muted it. Emily felt an exhilarating rush. This was no longer a standard presentation. It was a negotiation of values, testing their limits, and she was absolutely determined to stretch them. The back and forth dulled just long enough for her to glimpse Mr. Thompson, his expression unreadable as he absorbed her counterarguments. Confidence surged anew, charging her spine as she prepared to challenge him once more. Mr. Thompson, she said, locking her gaze with his, if you think about it, we have an opportunity here, a chance to redefine what success looks like. If we open our minds to balance, we can lead this organization into a brighter future. Suddenly, the quiet in the room shifted, and for a brief moment, she sensed a crack in the wall of skepticism surrounding the room. Perhaps her words had ignited curiosity, or perhaps Mr. Thompson was simply weighing the merits of her stance. Either way, Emily could feel the energy shift. As she awaited his response, her heart raced. Confidence fused with a flicker of dread. Did she truly believe they were ready to embrace change? How far was she willing to push her vision? The air hung thick with anticipation, her entire future in that moment. Poised between her convictions and the unresolved question lingering at the edge of her consciousness, and then Mr. Thompson leaned back, a contemplative look stirring in his eyes. Let us say I entertain your proposition. What lay ahead was uncertain, but the path was clear. She must prepare to defend her vision even further. Would she fully commit to this journey of transformation, even if it meant facing more scrutiny and risk? In her heart, she felt an overwhelming surge of determination. She was ready to navigate whatever challenges awaited. As she braced for his next words, she understood that the battle for her vision had truly just begun. Emily stood in the hospital hallway, the morning sun filtering through the large glass windows and illuminating the vibrant energy of the bustling emergency room. Her heart raced, a mix of excitement and determination surging through her veins. Over the past few weeks, she had transitioned from a self-doubting nursing student to an empowered advocate for change, all thanks to one defining moment, confronting the benefactor who had threatened the ethical backbone of the hospital. Now, she was ready to handle whatever came next, for she had learned to transform fear into fuel. Reflecting on the past, Emily marveled at her evolution. The timid girl who had stumbled into the ER that fateful day, overwhelmed by her insecurities, now stood with solid confidence. With each hurdle she'd faced, she had demonstrated tenacity. She'd won over her peers and mentors alike, including Alex. Their partnership had evolved into a relationship where she no longer concealed herself in the shadows of his example but stood as an equal, poised and competent. As she approached the conference room, where the hospital administration awaited her presentation, memories of their collaborative efforts flooded her mind. They had worked tirelessly, crafting a narrative that intertwined data with the voices of patients who had once felt unheard. Emily took a deep breath and entered the room, determined to own the space. "Good morning, everyone," she greeted, her voice steady and assured. The room hushed, and she caught Alex's eye, a silent assurance bolstering her confidence. They had prepared for this meeting meticulously. In presenting their initiative, her words flowed effortlessly, infused with purpose and conviction. "We have gathered compelling testimonials that showcase the profound impact of compassionate care on patient outcomes," she began, guiding the audience through their strategy to bridge emotional intelligence with data-driven results. The once daunting statistics began to feel like an extension of herself. She articulated their implications passionately. As she showcased feedback from patients who had experienced the transformative power of empathetic healthcare, she noticed heads nodding, expressions softening. For the first time, Emily felt as though she wasn't just speaking to secure approval but addressing a collective need for genuine connection within the medical community. When a contentious question arose from one of the board members, she felt her heart quicken. How can we ensure this approach aligns with our operational efficiencies? It was a challenge she had prepared for, yet her answer came from a place of newfound strength, not just from rehearsed facts. By embracing humanity in our care, we cultivate loyalty and satisfaction that ultimately leads to improved metrics, creating a positive feedback loop, she responded, citing examples from other healthcare systems that had seen tangible success. She could feel the shift in the room as her colleagues engaged in thoughtful discussion. Intrigued by her vision, every challenging inquiry only solidified Emily's resolve. She wasn't merely defending their proposal but illuminating a path for a more humane approach to medicine. The dialogue that ensued was rich and insightful, reflecting her ability to command the room and navigate complexities with grace. This was the moment she had longed for, her career aspirations converging with her passion for compassionate care. Outside the conference room, her thoughts raced. Had she really transformed from the girl who stood alone in a medical setting, full of doubt, to a leader influencing change? The realization hit her firmly, warming her heart. She had not just conquered her fears but had emerged as a valued voice within the hospital, a person who could effect real change. After the presentation concluded, applause resonated through the room. Mr. Thompson stood up, a slight smile teasing the corners of his mouth. I appreciate the depth of your argument, Emily. Your data is compelling, and I'm interested in seeing how we can implement this within our framework. He extended his hand, and she shook it, feeling a sense of validation wash over her. All the moments of obscurity had culminated in this acknowledgement. Later, as she exited the building with Alex, a glow of accomplishment enveloped her. You were incredible in there, he praised, admiration glowing in his gaze. You've really found your voice. I truly have, she replied, pride in her tone solidifying her reality. She felt a weight lift as her insecurities faded into the background, replaced by an understanding of her competence and value. Each step she took away from the hospital resonated with clarity. She was not just a nursing student but a catalyst for change, empowered to make a difference. With that understanding firmly in her heart, she couldn't help but smile. Emily had achieved what she once believed to be impossible. She had defined her place in the medical field, not just as a learner but as a leader. The future awaited her, ripe with opportunities and possibilities. The journey had been transformative, and she was ready to embrace it wholeheartedly. For those reading this journey, now it is your turn to step out of the shadows and ignite your own transformation. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support growth. Comment your reactions and theories about Emily's incredible journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need inspiration. Don't wait even one more second to share.